Hi, welcome back to another episode of Naturang Batas, Likas Tama. I'm your host, Jemy Gatdula, and we will now discuss one of our favorite subjects, which is, of course, natural law. We are joined again by our friend, Father Ces Magsino from the Prelature of the Opus Dei, and beside him is our constant co-host, David Rosario from the University of Asian Pacific. Father Ces, if you can just go directly into the topic. Again, we'll have to ask, what exactly is natural law?
Well, I'll first have to explain what is law, and then explain what is natural law, what makes it different from any other kind of law. So law, I will take the definition given by St. Thomas Aquinas. He said it is an ordering of reason. It's something that our reason, ating rason, ginagawa niya para maglagay ng kaayusan sa ilang mga bagay. So it's an ordering of reason. Now this ordering of reason governs our actions.
This is for law itself pala.
Law. Law in general, when we say law, it's an ordering reason that might govern our actions and that has as its purpose to develop us and to bring out the good, in fact, the best in us.
So how come may mga bad laws? I mean, how will that conform to the definition of binigay nyo of it being an ordering of reason?
Yeah, a bad law in strict terms is not really a law. It's the wrong use of a law. Okay. Now, so that's the general idea of a law, right? Now, when we say natural law, we are talking about a law that is constituted, tinatatag yan ng ating rason. Our practical reason is the one that gives us this law. And this law is innate in us. It is part of us. It's part of our nature. And it governs the way that we act. It tells us what things we must do and what things we must avoid. Because it tells us what things are morally good and what things are, or what actions are morally evil. And it issues the command, the good must be done and the evil must be avoided. Now, so that's what we call natural law.
Okay. Bakit, what makes it therefore natural?
So it's natural because its origin is something that is part of our nature. It's natural to us. And that is our reason, our practical reason. So it is the one, our practical reason is what constitutes the natural law for us. Moreover, our reason bases its reasoning, the way it thinks, in order to arrive at the precepts of the natural law. It bases itself on human nature. Concretely, on the demands of our human nature. That the demands that it be respected in its dignity, in its life, in its conscience, in its purposes, in its freedom. So all those demands are part of human nature, as well as the reasoning power itself is part of human nature. Kaya, yung lumalabas na batas dyan ay natural sa atin. Natural law.
Medyo alam natin komplikado itong subject na to. Meron ako nababasa na term na law of nature. Magkapareho ba sila, yung law of nature at saka natural law?
Typically, when we say law of nature, we're using a term that is found in the empirical sciences. The law of nature, like for example, the law of gravity of Newton, or the laws of thermodynamics, or so yan, yung mga laws na yan, they describe patterns in nature. And usually they are expressed in mathematical equations. So that's what the scientists might call the laws of nature. But that's not what we mean when we say the natural law.
So yung laws of nature, like kinuha ko itong baso, tapos binitawan ko siya, babaksak siya, Yun yung laws of nature.
Yes.
Kumbaga,
yes.
hindi siya pwede lumabag na bigla siyang aangat pataas.
That's right.
You mentioned kasi law and then law, natural law. Which means that yung law, siya yung parang pinaka-general term.
Yes.
And natural law is actually one kind o isang klase lang ng law.
That's right.
Meron pa bang ibang klaseng laws aside from natural law?
There are laws that human beings formulate in order to govern their life together, let's say in a society. So those laws, we might call them human laws, all right, or civil laws. So they also are orderings made by reason. They also are meant for the good of the people who compose the society. But their origin is in the human will, trying to put order in society. Pero yung natural law, its origin is our very same human reason and human nature.
I think dito medyo baka para sa audience natin, yung sinasabi yung human law or positive law is galing din sa atin, sa will natin.
Yes.
Yung kumbaga, will meaning yung ginusto natin siya.
Yes, ginusto natin gawin.
Pero yung natural law, galing naman sa loob din natin, pero sa intellect. Paano nagkakaiba yon? Like for example, yung paggawa ng batas sa traffic na pag red light, tumigil ka, is that natural law or human law?
That's a human law.
Okay.
Ngayon,
How do we know na human law siya at hindi siya natural law?
Yung human law has its origin in the human decision and choice in order to solve very contingent problems or situations or issues that confront a society. Pero yung natural law, galing yan sa ating pag-iisip, ang ating practical reason, but yet our reason realizes that it is not the author or the origin of the content of that law. So human reason realizes that that law, that command, that precept is really just a herald, tagapahayag ng isang nagbibigay batas na mataas, mas mataas pa. So and that lawgiver is in the end God.
Okay.
So talk of natural law always ends up in talk about God. Even the ancients, like the Stoics, equated the natural law as the law of shoes or the laws of the gods. Kasi the binding power, the obligating power of natural law is not a penalty that a human author might impose on you when you don't fulfill it. But its binding power is found in the conscience.
Okay.
The conscience is the same mind we have, but that applies the natural law to very concrete actions that we do. Moreover, if we follow it, it approves. But when we don't follow it, it reproves, it disapproves, it even bothers us.
That's an interesting point, yung penalty about natural law. Pero if going back lang sa example ko kanina sa traffic light, so parang lumalabas yung human law, kumbaga may decision tayo bilang tao na wag gumawa ng ganung batas or meron din tayong parang choice na gumawa ng ganung batas. Pero sa sinasabi nyo, yung natural law, wala tayong choice eh. Yun talaga yung parang batas kasi dahil tao tayo.
That's right.
So
parang built-in siya.
Built-in siya sa ating pagkatao.
That's right.
Pero can I ask lang para lang maiba ng konti? Like for example, yung little dog dyan or yung like that little duck or something, meron ba silang natural law sa sarili nila? Yung mga dogs, mga cats, ganun.
Well, strictly speaking, natural law kasi is the law that our reason gives us to govern our actions. And so therefore, strictly speaking, anything that does not have reason will not have quote-unquote natural law. But nevertheless, of course, they have laws inscribed in their nature.
Pero
so we can call them laws of nature.
Laws of nature naman sila.
In a broad sense.
Okay.
Not the scientific way that the scientists use the term laws of nature.
Okay.
But anything that has existence or that God created, God has inscribed in them
parang
a certain order,
parang instruction book,
manual, and according to that nature, that's the way they might behave or function or move.
Okay.
But that is, we can call that a law of nature for them, or their law of nature. But strictly speaking, that's not the same as what we're talking about here, the natural law.
So is this natural law something permanent? Because a while ago we were talking about laws and the laws we have, and the laws we have, if we find that there's something wrong with it, we try to amend it. But when it comes to natural law, is there such a way to amend natural law? Or is
Good
it
question.
as is, this is what it is?
Well, so since natural law is based on the way we think, our practical reason, which bases itself in turn on the way we are, our human nature, kung paano tayong nilikha ng Diyos. Now, to answer that question, since we can safely say and observe and conclude that human nature, ang kalikasan ng tao, ay hindi nagbabago yan kahit na 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, yung mga tao, makikita natin, mababasa natin sa istorya, pareho yung kanilang pag-iisip at pagkilos tulad natin. So we can say that human nature is stable and doesn't change. So there you have the quality of natural law na hindi siya nagbabago. Kasi natural law has to do with what makes a person happy, fulfilled, and good. And these values, so happiness, goodness, fulfillment, they are universal in the sense of for every person, and also universal in the sense of for every time. So in a sense, hindi siya
Pwedeng
hindi siya
i-amend.
pwedeng magbago. Hindi, permanent siya.
Okay. That's very interesting. We'll continue after this segment and hope you can still join us in our continuing discussion on natural law.